Hello, welcome to lesson 3. This is what we're going to cover in this lesson. First of all, we're going to look at common words and their importance. In the previous lesson, we looked at the word for and FR blend. That's a common word. It comes up several times in every passage. So we showed you how to use the FR blend for the word for. So we're going to look at common words and their importance. I'm going to use longhand here. Won't be doing that for very much longer. Common words and their importance. Secondly, we're going to look at simple word groups. Now, this is so important because if we write words like it is a, it was a, it has been a, all separately, it's going to take us a long time to write them. But if we can write them together and get used to those groupings, it's like writing one outline for 4 or 5 words. So it's quadrupling at least our speed, depending on how many words in the group, of course. Next, we're going to look at advanced phrases. As a sort of way of giving you a little bit of an insight into what's to come. We did show you all over the world at the very beginning. So some more advanced phrases or groups we're going to use, particularly with regard to the word have, the words have and the words would. Next, we're going to look at distinguishing outlines. I've talked before about distinguishing outlines, and I've said that whilst we can write one outline which would represent several different words, if the sense of the sentence doesn't tell us which of those words it is, then there may be a need to look at distinguishing outlines. So we're going to look at a couple of those today, one pair. And finally, we're going to put it all into practice. So that's our aim for this lesson. Incidentally, attached to this lesson is a handout on writing S inside curves and outside angles, which was part of lesson 2. Have a go at it now that you've had a week to practice writing S inside curves and outside angles, and then have a look at the answer sheet and see if you're getting it right. Remember, we write S outside angles to keep straight strokes straight so that our transcription is more accurate. So look out for those. Now we're going to move on to the common words. So words like what. If we were to write it in full, WHT, it would be a long outline. So we're going to count the H as silent and we're going to do WT on the T line. So it's going to be the same as weight or wheat. Next, we're going to go for when. Journalists will tell you these are the questions we ask. What, when, where and why. But what is the only one that misses out the H. Now when we come to when, we put the H in. W-H-N. Lazy teenager upstairs. H on the line and then the N joined on. What, when, where. W-H-R. Where. And finally why. W-H. And the Y says I. Now we are going to come on to this. We talked about indicators last time. When the Y says I at the end of a word, we use the I indicator. Remember, down where possible or up where necessary. If in why I had written the I indicator downwards, then at speed it might have looked like a J. So it's up where necessary to keep that sharp angle and to make it look easy to transcribe. There's going to be another section on why in a word, when it's silent, when it says why, and when the Y says I. Right, so now we look at the word with, another common word, with, and it's a W-I on the T line. If we wrote it in full, we would also add the T and the H, but because it's written so commonly, we write the W and the I on the T line. Next is which, no H in which. So we've got WC on the T line. Why is it on the T line? Because if we put the H in, the H would sit on the line, which would leave it high and dry on the T line. Next is each. So E indicator and C. No H. If there were an H, it would be sitting on the line, and that's why, again, it's high and dry on the T line, but it's like a special outline, each. Much is the same, M and C. So there's each, and here's much. No H. We've taken away its legs. And finally, a reminder of that word that we had last time, which is the word for. That's another very common word. So with, which, each, much, and for, to be added to those questions: what, when, where, and why. So common words that we need to practice. We're moving on now to simple word groupings. By that I mean common words that come together all the time. Let me write the heading in longhand. Simple word groupings. By groupings, I mean words that naturally go together. So it was a, it would be, I will be, he will be, etc. Things that come together all the time. Initially, when you're looking at word groupings, don't be too ambitious. So only use the common words that naturally come together. So for example, in the, let's look at the two words separately before. In, for in, remember the I goes that way as we did last time, and the. When we join the to anything, you'll remember you get rid of the T, drop the T, and just add the H. So in the would look like that. In some text, you'll see it dropped through the line. Either or is correct. So if you're following a textbook, you could see it either way. Personally, I prefer this way, but either is correct. Next, we've got if the. We looked at the indicator I for if, if. When we join it to the, we could do if the, or again, we could get rid of that T and go if the, which is quicker and therefore more favourable. Next is at the. So we start with the A indicator on the T line, which is the special outline for at, and just add the H for the at the. Next is from the, special outline F for from, and then at the same angle, just keep coming down with the H for the from the. For there is next. We looked at for last time, FR blend, and then the H for the. I showed you that last time, so hopefully you've remembered it. Will be the. I'm going towards the end of the line so it's clear. So you've got WL for will, lazy teenager goes upstairs. Now we could do this, be the, will be the. But when we group words together, we usually lose something from the grouping. So what we're going to lose here is the stem of the L. And if these were magnetic shapes, we're going to lift this magnetic shape and put it there. So will become that. And then the H for the, will be the. Think of it as a magnetic shape I've moved up. So one consonant, i.e. the L, also being the stem of the B, will be the. You'll get used to these as you practice them. Next is it will be the. So I've got to start with the it. It will be the. Next, we shall have the. So that S for SH that we learned last time, where we used it in words like wish and show, is also the special outline for shall. So that on its own says the word shall. So when we write we shall, it's exactly the same as wish. That says we shall. Again, the sense of the sentence tells you which it is. So when we want to say we shall have the, we want an H and a V for have. Now if I did this, H followed by V, I've got this wide angle. And in T-line, we want to avoid that wide angle at all costs. So when we write the word have, all we do is we slope the H and finish on the line and up with the V. So have becomes this. But when it's in a word grouping, we can reduce it to the V only. So we can write we shall have the. Now I know you'll be thinking that V is very, and it is. But we don't use it for have when it stands alone. We only use it for have when it's in a grouping. So we shall have, I will have, etc. using the V for have. So we've joined the, so we've made we shall have the. And there's a handout for this, which will be attached to this video, so that you've got all these special groupings, these simple word groupings, and a whole list of others that you can have a go at and look at the answer sheet. So do that, and if you have any questions at any time, please email us or contact us through Twitter or through Instagram, and we'll be very happy to answer your queries. So we've looked at simple groupings, that's common words that's joined together all the time. Now we're going to look at more advanced groupings. Words that come together a lot, which we know very commonly, like as soon as possible, as much as possible, as quickly as possible, etc. So let's take that first one, as soon as possible. If we wrote it all separately, we'd have AS for as, SN for soon, with the S inside the curve of the N, another as, and then we'd have a possible, which is a PS, and then we'd have a disjoined I for ibble, which we're coming on to later, but pos would do for now. So as soon as pos. When we join all that together, we used to do this. That S becomes that S. That indicator goes, because in groupings we lose things, and then we add the PS. So it becomes this, as soon as possible. However, as Teeline has developed over the years, and every time a textbook comes out, we have shorter ways of doing these things, that outline for as soon as possible has become this, as pos. And it's widely recognised as soon as possible. So both are correct, but obviously this is shorter. So if you wish to practice this for the special outline, or the advanced grouping, I should say, as soon as possible. The next one is as much as possible. So let's break it down first. So we start with as. Then I showed you much with no legs. It's lost its legs, so no H. That's why the MC is high and dry on the T line. Then another as, and then a PS for possible. So if we joined all that together, it would look like this. As much as possible. It's a good one to practice because you're practicing these S's inside curves, inside the curve of the M, inside the curve of the C, and either side to the straight stroke. You'll remember I prefer the anti-clockwise motion, but if you do it the other way, as much as possible, and you prefer to go clockwise on a straight stroke, it's still correct. But these two S's at the beginning must go inside the curve because it's quicker and faster to write. So now we've got as quickly as possible. Let's look at it separately. As, quickly, Q, C on its side it has to be, L, Y says I. It doesn't say y, it only says y in words like boy. If your lips come forward, it says y, boy, joy, enjoy. But where it says and your lips go back quickly, then it can turn from a Y into an I. So quickly, as possible. When we join all that together, this will be joined onto that. We'll forget the whole of the LI. We'll put the S inside the curve of the C and add the pos. So it looks like this. As quickly as possible. And you'll still recognise it for that very well-known phrase. It will seem difficult at first, but as long as you understand it and you practice it, it will become commonplace for you as quickly as possible. Right, a bit more exciting now. Let's go. By the end of the day. Now we've looked at the word the on its own is TH, but we've also looked at for the, by the, etc. So this is by the. We know if we wrote end, it would be END. We know if we'd go of is a special outline, add the H for the. And we know that D is the special outline for do or day. So by the end of the day. But we can make that one outline. Oh, this is so exciting because we use it a lot. So by the end of the day is by the. Just a D for end, like chop it off like a cul-de-sac, dead end. By the end. And then forget the of the and just put D underneath the day, by the end of the day. So what do you think this is? By the, and this, and this. So we've got by the end of the day, by the end of the week, by the end of the month, by the end of the Y for year. Now we're really motoring, aren't we? This is getting more and more exciting. We're almost finished with these foundations and we're ready to build speed. Magical. So we looked at 4 earlier. So we've gone by there. Now we've got before the end of the day, before the end of the month, and so on. And we can also do at the end of the year, at the end of the month. So lots and lots of examples based on the same principle of that D for the end. So practice all these and try to write them quickly, one after the other, saying them out loud to yourself, and gradually you'll get to grips with them and you'll be able to use them in dictation. And that's when you'll really start to see the speed. There's one more thing I want to show you in this lesson before dictation, and that is how to represent the word would in advanced groupings. So let's look at that word first, would. We take out the medial vowels and we take out the silent letters because we don't say would. So the L is silent and it becomes this. It doesn't matter whether it's that would or whether it's that would. The outline is the same. The sentence tells us which one it is. But in a grouping, we use would quite a lot. Now, just a few minutes ago, we looked at the word have in groupings and we looked at I have, we have, etc. using a V for have. Now we're going to look at this word would. Think of yourself as having a big axe in your hand and you're going to chop wood. Doesn't matter whether it's this wood or this wood, you're going to chop it. So instead of going I would, you're going to put that disjoint W slightly shorter than a normal W and without the D underneath the I. So that becomes I would, it's chopped wood. This is you would. And so on. So if I added a V, that would say I would have. If I then add to that an H, it becomes I would have the. So can you see how quickly we can build speed with common everyday words that we hear together all the time? Having showed you the have and the would, we're now ready for dictation. We've talked before about distinguishing outlines. 9 out of 10 times the sentence will tell us which the word is. So we wouldn't ride our book, we would ride our bike. But sometimes the sentence doesn't always tell us. So it helps us if we can make a slight difference to the way the word is written so that we can transcribe it correctly. We made a slight difference last time between the word has and the word his, because both outlines could easily be written the same, H and S. So by sloping the H the way the A goes and sloping the H the way the I goes, the I indicator goes, we've got distinguishing outlines between has and his. Also, we can do the same with the common words this, these and those. All 3 outlines could look like this, THS. But if we slope the H the way the I goes for this, bring it straight down for the E and these, and include the O for those, it makes it easier for us to transcribe accurately. Another example would be, I was amused by his story. I was amazed by his story. Now, although one is spelt with the S and one is spelt with the Z, we only use the Z, which you'll remember is this little circle and curl. We only ever use that when Z begins a word. If Z's in the middle of a word, such as razor, we'll use the S instead. So I was amused by his story, AMSD, and I was amazed by his story would be exactly the same outline. However, because they would be totally different meanings, we would distinguish between them by putting the Z, as in the spelling, in amazed.
I've got a series of sentences to do now. Before I read them out, I'm going to show you one new outline. The word is that. So we have TH and we cross the T through, that. So you might want to pause and practice that a few times over. Okay, ready? I have made the first team. That was my aim. What did you have to do to make that happen? Why did you have a coach so soon in your life? Why did you give a free kick? When do you have to go to the club? Let's see how you've done. There was a lot to think about in those sentences. I have made the first team. Remember V for have and I have in a grouping. First, F for R blend ST. That was my aim. Hopefully you got that correct. S inside the curve of was. MI for my. Remember no Y. Aim, A and M. That was my aim. What did you have to do to make that happen? So did you have, that string together quite well. Hopefully you agree with that. Remember, the second D is going underneath the first one, did. If it was date, we will go above. To do, we put T and D together. Again, D is going below, to do. We had that beforehand. And happen. Why did you have a coach so soon in your life? So again, we've got did you have, and we can add the A there, taking it one step further. Coach, CCH. So is S inside the O, so S inside the curve. Make sure that in, I indicator. Y for your special outline. Then LF for life. Why did you give a free kick? It's got Y again, when Y becomes I. Joining did you together again. Give A works quite well, doesn't it? GB and A. Free, F, R and E indicator with sounding the E. Kick. Wonderful. And last one we have is, when do you have to go to the club? So when, WHN. Do you will join together. Do you have, even one step further. To go. To, remember a G for go. Now we've got to the here. So we've joined to the together. We've put them close together. But remember that T's and T's don't join, but they are pushed together to make two there, a nice grouping. Then finally we have club, CLB. So when do you have to go to the club? Okay.
We haven't done an awful lot on word grouping. So if, for example, you've done everything separately, do, you, and have separately, then it's still correct. But we did show you how to do have particularly with just the V, but it's only just the V, remember, if it's joined onto something else. So it'd be better if do on its own and you have together, but better still if you've gone do, you, have. D and T are never joined to each other because it would make a very long stroke. So DD, did, DD, did, and so on.
Okay, so final challenge. I'm going to read those sentences all together as a small passage. We have 47 words in total. Okay, so let's give this a go. Okay, best of luck, and it's a lot to take in. Feel free to pause before I start reading it out and revise if you need to. Okay, otherwise let's give it a go. This is going to be read out at 60 words per minute. Okay, ready? I have made the first team. That was my aim. What did you have to do to make that happen? Why did you have a coach so soon in your life? Why did you give a free kick? When do you have to go to the club? So you've got just under 5 minutes to transcribe those notes. Now bear in mind there's a lot to take in and there's some things that we haven't gone over just yet in depth. For example, you might wonder why we're using the full A here for aim and not just AM like we do for am. Now the heavy sounds of A, we're using a full A, and for am we use the indicator A. And again, this just A's transcription. Another example of this would be autumn, where we would use the full A, so A-T-M, and atom, where we would use the indicator A, A-T-M. Equally, we've only just showed you how to write that. We've only just introduced some of these quite advanced word grippings. So don't be too hard on yourself. The main thing is to just make some notes, keep track of where you're missing words or find them tricky, and just drill them.
So in this lesson, we've looked at common words and their importance. 80%, approximately 80% of the words in any passage, any piece of dictation are common words. So if we can get to grips with those, then that's a very, very important step. Simple words and groups, similarly, all those simple words, ones that use those indicators like I and a, such as it is a, it was a. Those are the simple words and groups. If we're putting them together instead of writing them separately, we are really increasing our speed. The advanced phrases, we looked in the first lesson of all over the world. We're looking at other advanced phrases now, including the words have and would. And finally, we've looked at distinguishing outlines, when a sentence will not tell us how to read a word, when either or would make equally good sense, then we have a pair of distinguishing outlines. So we've covered all that today. It's a lot to take in. If you replay the video, practice the dictations that we've done, then you'll be fine. We're getting towards the end of these foundations now and we're ready to start building. So don't get worried, don't get stressed. Let's love Teeline together.